Still here.
Hello and welcome to another live chat on our show every Thursday here on LinkedIn Live. Hello, America's What's Cooking. And for those who already are watching every week, thank you for joining us again. And you can give us your comments and your questions in the chat. We'll try and answer as many as we can. And without further ado, I would like to welcome my guest today, Stephanie Cheung from Market ID. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. From in person back onto virtual. I know I'll see you probably soon in a few months in person again as well. And hopefully a lot of you who are listening in today.
And we appreciate you being here. But before we get started, would you be able just to give us a very quick introduction of yourself and of your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Stephanie Cheung. I'm the Director of Strategy and Insights at Market ID. Market ID is a full service marketing agency, and we've been around for 40 years, most recently rebranded in the fall of 21 from previously Marketing Challenges International. Our services range from destination brand strategy to market research to representing destinations in market at industry events. And we leverage a wide variety of marketing tools to reach audiences, including target emails, ultimately just with the objective of converting high value sales leads. So over the last 40 years, we've worked with many destinations around the world, and our current roster of clients are Dubai, South Korea, and Panama.
And you already gave us a great segue into our first question. You mentioned you rebranded. I think a lot of people know Marketing Challenges and Michel Couturier for many years. What is some of the thoughts and the thought process in rebranding?
Absolutely. I think similar to everyone, we were challenged to think critically about what does value add for our destination clients mean in today's climate. And during the pandemic, we pivoted to a lot of different virtual events. One of which, to give an example that we may go into later, but for South Korea, we hosted a virtual scavenger hunt using virtual reality tools, so 360 platforms. And the goal was to think about how can they still engage clients and create serendipitous moments in an environment in which a typical sales team could have gone there and met them in person. So during this time, we were forced to come up with really new services and products, but also pushed us to really think, well, what is the real DNA of our company today? Where do we add the most value? And can we make sure that our company represents that and our products and services are reflective of it? So with that, we were at a company retreat. And I actually think the best part about this whole story is this all happened pre-pandemic. The first idea to actually do a major rebrand. In December of 2019, our whole company went for a retreat upstate, and we did a hard look at, let's do a SWOT analysis. Like what are our strengths, but also let's identify our weaknesses. And let's make sure we turn each one of those weaknesses into an area of opportunity for growth. So the seed was planted back in December of 2019. Then lo and behold, we were able to hit the ground running, and we kind of ran with that idea. So hence the brand new name of Market ID, and ID standing for identity, but also standing for international destinations.
Excellent. And you hit the nail on the head. There was already a need for rebranding, for changing. And I guess you'll probably agree with most of organizations, especially in our meetings industry, that the pandemic probably just accelerated some challenges which we needed to address quickly. And when we chatted, and I wanted to say a few weeks back, but That has been beginning of January. Time just flies. You were telling me that you've noticed there were quite a few new changes globally when it comes to destination marketing, and you touched a little bit with your example on that. What are some of the trends you have seen emerging?
I want to be mindful that this is a topic that we talk about often. So I'll step out of the box in just thinking about trends from the perspective of application of technology. And so we can kind of just talk through some of those pieces. One of the biggest things are, I think, to be mindful of untraditional players in the marketplace. And by that, I'm referring to, okay, so you're a destination and you have your venues, which are your hotels and your convention centers and so forth. Well, now competition is all of those other players who were not traditionally in the meetings and event space. So we take Airbnb as an example, um, as different venue options, but then now you have Airbnb experiences, which you can actually now use that as a platform to build a cultural activation when you're in a brand new destination. That's another venue that a meeting planner can go to as a source of information. You have large department stores, right? So you have Saks Fifth Avenue as an example. They launched a co-working space this past year called Saks Works. So this co-working space, and in particular, actually just did a site inspection there a few weeks ago in New York City at their flagship store. Within this co-working space, they have a whole events team. So now you're looking at co-working spaces that are also competing for the same pieces of business. Uber, we traditionally think of Uber as a means of transportation, but could Uber also be a more strategic partner? So if you actually look in your Uber app now, there is a section just for meetings and events where they're looking to service your events by providing you directly with a voucher for all of your attendees to use, again, it could be for an incentive to attend your event, but it also can be thought about as streamlining the logistics process, right? So maybe competing with the role of a DMC. So some of these key changes that I'm noticing are really relative to understanding that not only is our clients' needs changing, the meeting planners' needs changing because the attendees' expectations are different when they show up at the event, but also understanding that we have a new set of competitors in the space. And I think what that means for destinations is destinations need to have a better understanding of what those types of new offerings are so that they can speak to how cutting edge their destination is. Because in 2022, when we're looking at any international destination, the bare minimum is the expectation that you're going to have high speed internet and you're going to have 5-star hotel rooms and excellent service. That's the minimum. So now as a convention, as a DMO, how are we sharing and showing value add beyond the more traditional venues that you can use and partners? So I think that's one big one.
And I'll get to that question in a minute. What I did want to pinpoint here is that you're really talking the same language as we had one of our first guests earlier, talking about the new venues coming up from galleries and museums who are now suddenly huge competitors to the convention centers and the hotels. So really aligned that changing ecosystem and the need for destinations to really look at rebranding their destination offering and taking stock and inventory to that effect, as you highlighted. One of the areas you do consult in is new technology solutions for marketing, and you touched upon that. What are some of the examples destinations or how destinations are leveraging new technology solutions?
So many ways. And in this conversation between us now, we'll just touch upon some of them. In During the pandemic, we actually conducted a study with a New York University. So NYU has a very famous hospitality program. We worked with their graduate students to look at a survey of the top 35 convention cities. And we took a look at, well, what tools are being used now and what's coming up on the horizon. And then we took a deep dive into what are some examples of how a destination can use technology in a different way. All of that really came down to how can we equip and empower our team or a sales and marketing team with all the tools in order to reach the audience. That's really the main objective that we're trying to achieve. And that's not to say the traditional methods don't work. We need them. We need the in-person road shows and the sales calls. Those aren't going away. But how do we make sure we're also incorporating a 360-degree access to our destination and having multiple touch points? So when I think about that, I think that technology can be broken up into, let's say, 4 different categories. One is for the usage of engagement. So how are you reaching your audience where they are? 2 is what are hybrid event capabilities like? And we talk about hybrid a lot. So when I dig into it later, I'll share some specific examples of what I'm referring to. 3 is how can it enhance your destination experience, whether that person is there live or touring from abroad. And the 4th piece is safety and security. Starting with the first one, engagement. So I'm a salesperson at a destination. I need to engage with my clients, but I'm engaging with them now from hundreds and thousands of miles away. So what I want to create are points of connection. And in order to do that, we really need to laugh and we have to have fun, and it needs to be dynamic. Well, the fact is, webinars aren't doing that, right? I think there's a time and place for educational pieces being a one to many where you're broadcasting a certain message. But the reality is that what makes the most effective sales meetings are the ones that you don't feel like you're being sold to, right? So can we build in, as an example, gamification into your client events? So the example that I shared earlier was a virtual scavenger hunt. What we did in this case was we built a whole scenario and series where once you entered the virtual room together, we did breakout groups, but each group was responsible for solving the virtual scavenger hunt together, appointed one team leader, and from there, they got to experience different parts of Korea. So that was everything from a convention city like Busan to actually looking at a specific convention center like COEX. Within the group, you're going in to use the virtual reality platform where you're actually doing a walkthrough of that particular venue or destination. And then as a team, you're solving some super specific questions about what they saw in the meeting room 3. What is the max capacity there? And that experience ended up with clients writing back to us and saying that was the most engaging and the most fun way for me to have learned about a destination that I've had all year, which our team took great pride in because we've had now a year and a half of virtual events at that point. So that's an example of building in fun but still having your clients go through a full experience. It also positions your destination really uniquely because it is highlighting your technological capabilities and then highlighting that you care about the attendee experience. Another quick other ways that you can think about engagement might be live polling using visualization. So maybe you are hosting a webinar because that makes sense for the number of partners that you have with you to present. Well, can you make sure you're asking thoughtful questions throughout such as between each speaker that's coming on. And then you can include visualization. And example of that company is Mentimeter. So Mentimeter has a lot of live polling options. Third could be thinking about collaboration. So engagement and collaboration comes hand in hand, but now if you're not meeting in person, could you use a collaboration tool that allows you as a convention bureau and your partners, or you as your convention bureau, your partners, and your meeting planner to use a digital whiteboard to plan and strategize and brainstorm? There's actually even specific virtual site inspection tools in which you can make notations and drop links right into the floor plan of what you're working in. And lastly, from an engagement perspective, emails. What format are they coming in? Yeah, we're going to do digital marketing, but can you add a GIF? Can you add a video? It could be a 30-second video where your whole message is in the video. An interesting company that does that is BombBomb.
Perfect. And I actually wanted also to touch on that engagement part with you. And you touched a little bit with the collaboration element, because if for a lot of the destinations, obviously their audience are the meeting planners, but are not also the local stakeholders, their communities, they are also their audience. They want to engage in some ways. They want to have all that support system and build the local ecosystem. So have you seen with any of the destinations globally that they're really also engaging that local community?
Absolutely. And think that one of the key ways to do it was that during the pandemic, a lot of these local suppliers were really looking for direction, right? They were looking for forecasting data. They were looking at, well, when are our borders going to be open so I can even make a sales and marketing plan? Because many of these venues really felt like their hands were tied to knowing when they should invest in the market and when they should, and what type of messaging they should proceed with when they didn't even know when the destination would open, and so on and so forth. So there was a much greater reliance on the destination and being a leader during that time and sharing consistent market updates. An example of that is Promptor Panama, actually most recently in this past January, invited us down to host a specific stakeholder workshop for all of their stakeholder partners. That includes DMCs, hotels, venues, and so forth, to actually just workshop on, well, what's happening in the North American market, what are trends from a global scale, and what are some applicable tactics that the Panamanian suppliers can walk away with immediately and apply to their sales and marketing campaigns.
And
That showed, I think that showed the suppliers that, or the stakeholder partners rather, that there was a direct investment in their success. And it wasn't just about promoting the destination, but it was, let's have a workshop, let's have a conversation, and let's build together a stronger destination that's even more ready when the world is ready to come.
And we just had a question in the audience. Sorry to jump in there. Do you work with a specialist app for polling? I think you mentioned you use Mentimeter, right?
Exactly. Hi, Brett. Good to see you. Mentimeter is a good one. And I would say there's a whole bunch. Mentimeter in specific just does visualization. So for example, if you ask a certain question in which it's a one-worded response, it can actually go ahead and create a word cloud for you. Because sometimes where it misses the mark, or where polling misses the mark, is you poll, you ask a question, people engage, great. But what do you do with the data? What's happening with those answers after? Are you implementing it directly in your presentation? Just so people also stay engaged and know that when they're answering something, it's going somewhere.
Perfect. And you're just bringing that full circle, that you have to have a marketing strategy rather than just use things, you have to bring it full circle. And Brecht is saying, yay, good to see you too. So I'm mindful of our time. So you had still three elements you wanted to share. Could we just give that in a nutshell
Absolutely.
before we
Um,
wrap?
I will speed through the rest of them, and whoever's listening, feel free to get geeky with me and follow up so we can have another conversation about any of the topics that I described. The second one is hybrid event capabilities. So again, there is a baseline expectation that you're going to have these capabilities, right? But what are some ways that you're highlighting it? So as a venue, could you, for example, be the host sponsor for the in-person portion of the hybrid event so that your venue is highlighted virtually, but then you also have some people who are attending in person. Most recently, we saw that Singapore did that for PCMA. Maybe you can think about having preferred partnerships or tools that's a value add for your client. So if you're either on the destination side or a venue side, can you already pre-negotiate different event technology tools to entice the meeting planner to work with you instead of another destination or venue because they don't have that set up? Because meeting planners are looking for you to provide a solution about what they can do when they come to your venue or your destination. So be solutions oriented, have preferred partnerships that can actually offer a discounted or a lower rate. Those are some examples on the hybrid event capability side. And the last bit of it is keep testing. Don't ever feel too comfortable in thinking that you have all the up-to-date technology, because you will never be you will never have the best pulse point on all the other things that are available to you. But as long as you keep testing and you keep trying out new solutions, even if you don't implement them, that's still a touch point that you can explain to clients. The third piece is on destination experience. So we've talked a lot about virtual reality tours, but in reality, virtual tours have been around in the real estate market forever, right? So it's not new to it. A lot of us have been using it and relying on it heavily during the pandemic, but there are some really mature companies that have done a lot of interesting work in the virtual reality tour space for the real estate market. And that can be directly used in destinations. I mentioned earlier that there's a specific platform that you can use in which you can add notes and attachments. As a meeting planner, I can actually go ahead and measure different parts of that room directly in the platform. That's called Matter Pack. And then lastly, I saw a cool application where you can actually get a bird's eye view of different neighborhoods within your destination, and you can hyperlink the neighborhood overview to tours where you can get a Google Map street view, and then you can pull back and you can see where all the hotels and where all the restaurants are within that neighborhood. Because some of the issues from a destination marketing perspective is you may represent a city, but you may represent a country. Let's just take a city as an example. Even if you represent a city, you're going to have 10 different very distinct neighborhoods, and a meeting planner is going to need to understand why one over the other. And the last part is safety and security. So there's a company, for example, called Epistemics, and they're projecting reopenings. So they're testing different case scenarios in order to evaluate what conditions and interventions you might need in order to safely host events. So I've seen a few different convention centers actually use that tool to prove to convention organizers why they can safely organize back in their specific venue, but also in their city. So leverage science to actually prove to your clients why it's safe, because that meeting planner might not have the financial resources to be able to go out and do that study on their own. Maybe when you're actually at the event, you're using WayTag, which is Bluetooth enabled, and you can capture visitor movement by using a heat map. And last bit is kind of just communicating all of this. So many destinations are doing amazing things, but is your website up to date? And I think that part of it, the simple things where now you have a whole team, you guys have all these great things implemented, but when we go to your website, do we see all of that? Is it reflective of all the work that you've done? And that's actually a really simple. I hope everyone who is listening goes ahead and makes sure that their website is the best reflection of them, because that's going to be the first place that a client is going to look. And it sounds simple, but I would say 50% of the time, the website is not the most up to date.
You just blew my mind. I think what this conversation gave us so many ideas and topics which we could get much more into detail. And we definitely have to reshare the recording with our ICA community to give a lot of the destination also some tips on what to do to really come into this new age of destination marketing. And I know for future where to get my geek partner in on event tech. Before we go, anything you wanted to share with our audience today? Any additional tips and tricks? Although you gave us so much food for thought talking about food. Any recipes? Favorite restaurants in New York?
I love to eat. So I think that if I continue on that, we will have another 30-minute segment about food. But I also really enjoyed cooking. It was actually my way of pretending like I was traveling during the pandemic, and I was traveling the world through different recipes. I even attempted to make baklava, which between you and me, I'm never going to try to make again. And I will always happily pay $5 for a little square, knowing how difficult it was. My favorite recipe, and is a go-to for me, is a pistachio crusted salmon. So it sounds super
Ooh.
fancy, but it's so easy to make. You literally just marinate your salmon with just salt and pepper, and you grind up the pistachio and you pat it in to the top of either side. You bake it. It sounds fancy, looks beautiful, and it tastes awesome. So pistachio crusted salmon, one of my favorites.
And it is healthy because it has the healthy fats as well. Oh my God, I think I know what I'm cooking tonight. And I'll definitely help you with that baklava recipe because that does come from the neck of woods where I'm from. So we can attempt that together. Thank you so much, Stephanie. It was a great pleasure to have you. For anybody who wants to be on our show, please feel free to email me at xenia.p@ecaworld.org. And for anybody who wants more information on Market ID and connect with Stephanie, please feel free to go to their website, marketidny.com. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the day. Next week on our show, we will have a special guest, not from the Americas region. It will be Guy Bigwood, Mr. Sustainability, telling us all about the GDS Academy. Thank you and bye bye.
Thank you.